What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another very exciting video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at something that I have seen across the internet over and over again over the last month or so, and it is the comparison between PayPal and Meta and the position that Meta was in around 8 to 10 months ago. So what I want to do is I want to compare how PayPal and Meta actually stack up and what is similar between the two situations that the companies have been in, and then I want to take a look at the differences and why those differences are important, and then we'll leave off the video by going over a potential price target for PayPal over the next year. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. Let's start off by taking a look at the stock charts for each of these companies. We'll start by looking at PayPal. If we look over the last 6 months, they are down 21%, and year to date down almost the same. If we look over the last year, they're down almost 40%, and over the last 5 years, we see something very interesting. PayPal is actually down 34% compared to where they were trading at 5 years ago. And PayPal has had a very rough time ever since the fall of 2021. We can see that the stock spiked at around $310, but from there it is down over 80%. When we compare that to Meta, we could see that over the last 6 months, Meta is up almost 65%. Year to date, they are up almost 130%. Over the last year, up almost 70%. And if we look at the last 5 years, we can see that the stock from where it was trading at 5 years ago is up 62%. However, that is not without a lot of volatility. We can see that again, around the fall of 2021, the stock was trading around $375. However, from there, it fell all the way down below $100, which was a 76% move down. And from the lows in the $90 to where the stock is trading at now, we have seen over a 200% move up in the stock price. Let's start by taking a look at the revenue for the two companies, and we'll start with Meta. And I want to compare around 5 years ago, so the end of 2017, to where the company is at today. So we can see Meta was bringing in around $40.6 billion at the end of 2017, and if we look today, they're bringing in around $120.5 billion. So that is about a triple up on their revenue numbers. One important thing to note with Meta is its growth numbers. We could see down here that prior to the end of 2021, they were getting anywhere from 20 to 55% growth in revenue. However, over the last year or so, we have actually seen those numbers drop down into the single digits and even negative at some points. For PayPal, we can see how their numbers stack up, and at the end of 2017, they were bringing in around $13.1 billion in revenue, and when we compare that to today, they're bringing in around $28.5 billion in revenue. So a little bit over a double up for their revenue over that time period. If we look at their growth numbers, we can see that they were growing before 2021 anywhere from 13% all the way up to 30%. However, similar to Meta, over the last couple of years, their growth has slowed down, and they have been anywhere from the 7% range up to the 10% range for revenue growth. And we have seen similar trends for EPS numbers. So for Meta, we can see that they have grown their EPS significantly over the last 5 years. At the end of 2017, they were bringing in around $5.39 in EPS. They spiked all the way up to $14 in the fall of 2021. However, they have had a pullback over the last year or so down to the $8 range for EPS. And for PayPal, we see something similar. At the end of 2017, they were bringing in around $1.47 in EPS. They also spiked up in the fall of 2021 to $4.16. However, they experienced a pullback over the last year down to this $1.74 range, but they're starting to really turn that around, and now they're sitting around $3.57 in trailing EPS. Free cash flow has also been an issue for both of these companies. We could see that over the last 5 years or so, it's been relatively flat. We can see in 2018 and 2017, they were anywhere from $15 to $17 billion in free cash flow, and now they're sitting around $19 billion. So not very significant amounts of growth over that time period. For PayPal's free cash flow, they have a very interesting step change that occurred in 2017 to 2018. But if we look at the 2018 numbers, we can see that they brought in around $4.6 billion in free cash flow. And if we compare that to today, we can see that they're only bringing in around $5.1 billion in free cash flow. So again, very stagnant growth over these last 5 years in terms of free cash flow. So in my opinion, when we look at Meta as well as PayPal's EPS and revenue numbers, we see a lot of growth in a very short period of time. And that really occurred from 2020 to 2021, and that is due to the pandemic. A lot of growth was pulled forward for both of of these companies. And over the last 1 to 2 years, we're starting to see some of those numbers pull back, and that's what's hurt their stock price. The second half of this video, I want to go over the differences between Meta and PayPal and why they are important, because if you're investing in PayPal thinking that it is going to double or triple up over the next 8 to 10 months, I think that could be a bad situation, because there are some key differences between the situation that Meta was in versus the situation that PayPal is currently in. One of the key differences between these two companies is Meta is spending a ridiculous amount of money on the metaverse. They're spending $1 billion per month on the metaverse. And what that means for investors is when they look at these numbers and the amount of spending that Meta has going on, they see that Meta can easily cut back on this spending and all that money will be retranslated into free cash flow. And what that has done for investors is give them a little bit more confidence that Meta could always revert back to the business that they know and got them to where they're at, which is advertising and social media. And even Mark Zuckerberg has came out and discussed the possibility of cutting back on metaverse spending, as well as reducing their employee headcount to really help bolster the balance sheet as interest rates have gone up. For PayPal, it is a little bit different of a situation. They have a competition problem. We have payment companies coming in like Google Pay, Stripe, Apple Pay, as well as Square, and even Amazon is coming out with their own payment platform. And all of these are threatening what PayPal has built over the last couple of years. So this problem could take a little bit longer to work out to see how these competitors really try and target PayPal's dominance in this industry and if they're able to pull away market share from the company. One other advantage that Meta has is their employee count. They have actually grown their employee count by 30% or more over the last few years. And we can see that back in 2017, they had 25,000 employees, but now in 2022, they're sitting at 86,000 employees. And the reason this is a benefit for Meta is because the more employees they have, the more ability they have to cut their spending by reducing their headcount. When we look at PayPal, we can see that back in 2017, they had 18,700 employees. And then in 2022, they're sitting at 29,900 employees. They have had a slight reduction in headcount over the last year or so, but when we compare that again to Meta, their numbers are not on the same scale. They don't have the same ability to reduce headcount by a significant amount to really bring down their costs. Another difference between Meta and PayPal is Meta has had a very strong CEO with Mark Zuckerberg at the helm from the very start. However, PayPal is going through a transition between CEOs. They just named their next CEO as Alex Chriss, who's from Intuit. I'll get into this a little more and this selection in a different video, but I think this is important to keep in mind that when there is turnover high up in the company, there's always a little bit of skepticism from investors because they want to know the vision for the new CEO. Let's close out the video by taking a look at valuation and price targets. So here we can see that Meta is currently trading at a forward PE ratio just under 22. However, if we look back in the fall of last year, they were trading below a 12 forward PE ratio. And PayPal, we could see, is in a similar situation right now where they are trading at a forward PE ratio of a 12. So what investors are really anticipating over the next 6 to 8 months is that PayPal will go on a similar run to Meta. However, I don't believe this is true for the reasons we just went over. I think we need to consider the fact that PayPal is in a different situation that could take a little bit longer to work out with competition coming into the marketplace as well as a new leadership team. According to Yahoo Finance, PayPal's earnings projections for 2023 come in at $4.95 for the average EPS estimate, $4.90 for the low, and $4.99 for the high. So anywhere really around a 12 forward PE ratio. So what we could do with that 12 PE ratio is we can compare that against a couple other PE ratios. The first being the PE ratio for Meta, which is sitting at a 22. And then the second is, in my opinion, a more conservative number of a PE ratio of 15. And if we run a price target for a 22, we get a potential stock price of $108.90, which would be an 83% move up from the current stock price. And for a 15 forward PE ratio, we get a price target of $74.25, which is almost a 25% return from the current stock price. So with all that said, keep in mind, I do own both Meta and PayPal shares. I like both of these companies. However, with all the hype on the internet right now around PayPal, I want people to keep in mind that these two companies are in very different situations. We saw Meta and the amount of spending they had over the last couple of years investors. When they started dialing that in, investors became more confident and the stock price soared. However, PayPal is in a far different situation. They have competition coming into the marketplace at a slow rate that people are still trying to figure out how much market share they could potentially lose, as well as the changing of their management team. And both of these factors are going to take a little bit longer to play out, and I think that PayPal is going to see a potential recovery over the next 1 to 2 years instead of the potential recovery we saw from Meta over the last 6 to 8 months. But keep in mind, do not buy a company just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. Make sure you are doing your own research and looking into companies that meet your risk tolerance as well as your time horizon. So with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure you hit that sub button. And as always, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day.